Day 109, this is version 5, the DynCorp harvest. So I'm going to go through what they call brownstone operations or sex stings. This is why they are doing the sex trafficking. This is why they're finding the girls. The finder's case in Washington, D.C. They do these all the time. The one in Boulder with, Jean Bonnet, Waco, where they were getting kids over and over, the Franklin case, et cetera. They're always using the kids as bait. There's been a change, though. In the old kind of George Bush days and the Pug Winokur days, they used to do it to go after Russian or Chinese diplomats to kind of control, or any country, to control putting in your person versus versus having to kill somebody. So it was kind of spycraft. It was used to position your people up a pyramid in the power hierarchy rather than having to kill people. So in that case, I say it's kind of like fine hand spycraft. It's kind of like almost artistic in the sense, rather than having to go in and have dead bodies everywhere, or earthquakes to move in for drilling. So in that sense, I always kind of have a lot of more respect for George Bush Sr. because he did that kind of spycraft versus his son, who's kind of like heavy crayon, and Hillary, who's very heavy crayon, leaves lots of footprints. So I'll just talk about this. They have these operations. They run them about every 2 years in a country, and they just change the name. This is Operation Underground Railroad. Well, the innovation, or if you want to call it that Hillary did, is when they do kidnap these girls, they run the operation now as long as possible. And if you are caught, if you're one of the Johns that get caught, you bribe your way out. And that was a campaign contribution to Hillary. If not, then you go into the legal asset forfeiture, which takes longer, which they don't like. They want that immediate bribe, that immediate cash. So this is kind of Pug Winokur's, angle on DynCorp. Where this gets troubling is when you're just running it for your own pleasure. So you're having your own police officers rape this woman. This is Jessa Crisp, and she was raped repeatedly by several gangs of police officers, being kind of that DynCorp had leverage on. Then it starts, the line blurs between the criminals and the cops. At that point, if you run a drug operation like they did in Western Baja in Mexico for 20 years with that cartel, and you say it's a 20-year investigation, is it really a 20-year investigation, or is it 19 years of you running a protected crime ring and the last year is the investigation? If you run Operation Underground Railroad for 3 or 4 years, trafficking girls back and forth from Haiti to Colombia, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and then when an investigative journalist like myself shines a light on it, and then you make a bust and you don't name the 12 people that were arrested, is that really a sexting operation that you were running at the Caraco Hotel in Haiti, or is it really that you were discovered? So unfortunately, well, I can just show you how who set all these things up, from going all the way back to 30 years ago. And this is Tyler Drumheller. He was the guy who ran the CIA for Europe, and he did all the brownstone operations or sexting operations in NATO to get NATO defense money sent into the F-35 program. He's also in the company with General Grange for the topple of Libya and Syria, and he's with Sid Blumenthal. So this goes all the way back to when Sid Blumenthal was in the White House in 1992, 93, Bosnia, all those. So they were finding these girls all over Eastern Europe and using them, sex string operations there. This is where she came from. That's where she came from. Then Jeff was in New York, 1993, and basically set up the same kind of operation that they were running with Valerie Plame way back then in 93 in New York. Then he moved it down to Mar-a-Lago and Tampa, and then they moved it out to Little St. James Island for more privacy. The customers that they brought in were people from all over the world on Jeff's plane, and Bob Maxwell, the guy who sold the Promise software, the Bill Weld stole from the developers of, that's kind of like a prosecutor software. That was to get all the names of all the Johns so that they could bring them here. And his daughter was put in charge and married Jeff Epstein, Ghislaine. So that was the whole way of bringing the Johns from all over the world, you know, mostly Arab guys, to Jeff's house to get the sexting on them. So there's only one way you know how to. My involvement here is I was involved in 2002 to 2003. I actually got through an intermediary from the Secret Service, somebody who did not like Hillary very much. They got a tape or a little memory stick from an intermediary through the Secret Service, and then I moved it on. I don't know all the things that are on it, but I know some of the things on it in their videos. Okay, and I really don't want to say more about that until the 650,000 emails come out, because the Espionage Act, I don't want to be admitting to moving classified information. So I'd like to see more emails come out, but I know for a fact that there are videos, Secret Service made videos. His house, if you don't know the story, had all the low light cameras out in Orgy Island when it was raided by the West Palm Beach police. So this is just another version, yet another McDonald's franchise operation of the Tyler Drumheller stuff that they did. And it goes all the way back to the Finders case. They've been doing this for a long time. I gave the memory sticks to a journalist in Chappaqua, New York. I met a journalist up by Kenny Bunkport. We met in New Hampshire. He didn't want to meet there, so we met in New Hampshire. I met another retired or FBI agent, who I don't know the name of, in Lake Champlain, to give them a memory stick. I met the guy who broke the original Finders case, which is Paul Rodriguez. I met him in the Philadelphia train station. Gave him a thing. He never wrote about it, but he was the one who originally broke the Finders case. So at that time, I did not know that it was a CIA operation or a DynCorp operation. But so anyway, if you're going to be a victim, if you're going to figure this stuff out, so here's Valerie Plame, and she's the one who ran the operation on the generals in NATO. Basically, the operation was, we'll replace you now that we have you on film, and unless you give money to this F-35 program. It was called the Joint Strike Fighter. So that's where the $240 billion missing dollars are in the NATO budget. That's why Chandalon was killed. Okay, so if you're going to fall, the one way you can figure this out is be a victim. You know, you actually have to go undercover and be a victim of these folks, which is not a bad. It's not bad duty, I'll tell you, with Valerie Plame. Now, I'm not going to say it was Valerie Plame, my undercover work, but somebody similar, like, which I'll name her later. But there's two ways to go on these things. If you want to expose the operation and see how they do the cameras and how they do the setup and how they do the blackmail and all that, you have to kind of either be a victim of the child network, which I certainly wasn't going to do, or the other thing they do, and they were running it through Craigslist at the time, was more this kind of dominatrix thing. So I chose, if you're going to be victimized by a beautiful dominatrix, well, I volunteered. So I'm admitting right now that I went through that cycle in a couple of different cities to make sure it wasn't just in one city. I know people are going to make a lot of jokes here at this part, but it's the truth. And this does happen. So what does happen to you is then this group here, 6 these revenge groups on you to kind of make your life go downhill, and there's a whole bunch of different ways they seize the assets, and that's exactly what's happening in the United States. This is what Joint Terrorism Task Force does. I know it sounds unbelievable, but that's the truth. Okay, that's enough truth for the day. Thanks, everybody.